Hey everyone, and welcome back to Birds of a Feather Talk Together. I'm RJ, and I'm here with my favorite people to talk all things birds with, our experts and married couple, John and Shannon, and my wife, Amanda. Today's episode is a very special one. It's actually a listener request. Diane asked us to cover one of the most iconic voices of the Northern Lakes, the common loon. That haunting, echoing call over a still lake at dusk, it's pure magic. But there's a lot more to loons than their unforgettable voice. From their striking red eyes and black and white plumage to their unbelievable diving skills, these birds are masters of life in the water. So pour yourself a cup of coffee, imagine you're sitting lakeside with us, and let's talk loons, right here on Birds of a Feather Talk Together. Okay, let's grab our binoculars and get into it. But it doesn't mean we have to start.
All right. No, we should definitely start. So I had to get up a website.
Oh, it's okay.
Yeah. My website on loons that were in movies.
Oh, yes. Yes.
In Mexico.
Oh, I'm glad you're going to talk
Central
about
America
that.
And
out of Africa, I think.
Yeah. And like the newest Marvel where they're like in another universe or something. Yeah.
I mean, does that rival a kookaburra as far as like the sound used the most?
Yeah, it might actually, for sure.
Yeah. Well, Amanda, this is your bird. Do you want to kick it off?
No, I'd like you to kick it off.
Oh no.
Or just so I was gonna say, you usually do like some kind of introduction, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not as researched on the loon. So this was was one of our listeners, Diane, requested that we did a loon episode, and we're familiar with loons. Amanda and I saw one for the first time this past summer, actually in Michigan, which was exciting. Didn't know much about them, but was able to ID one out on a lake, like a big, wide open lake that had a lot of room to take off, which we've learned about is like very important for them. And also a very clear lake, one of the cleanest lakes in Michigan, which we've also learned is a very important part of what they need as well to survive. So at the time we were pretty like surprised to see them, to see one. It was in southern Michigan, and had never seen one there before. And but after reading up on it, it was like, oh, okay, this is kind of somewhere where it would make sense, I guess, as far as like the type of lake. But yeah, what does everyone else think about loons? I know we'll talk about their call, obviously, which has been used a ton.
Yeah, I wanted to say, I thought the way you thought, like, oh, it makes sense that we saw one. I thought when we saw a loon, like it was our first time seeing a loon, but I thought, oh, we'll see a loon, again. Like I feel like they're so common in popular, culture. Like there's a coin called a loonie in Canada where that features the image of a loon. And I feel the image of a loon is on a lot of clothing. So I think I thought I hadn't happened to see one till this past summer, but I just assumed they were around. And so I was super surprised when I started looking into it and found out, oh no, it was super rare and special for us to see one where we were. And yeah, so that was my first impression.
Loons
Shannon,
are
what do you
on
think?
the Canadian coin because there are lots of loons in Canada, because that's where they're native to. So,
right, and they're the state bird of Minnesota too.
They're not native to Australia and some of these other places. You might have heard them. But yeah, I mean, so they are pretty, and I'm glad they're on the loon. And I think loonie is a hysterical name for the dollar coin in Canada. For people who don't know, there's no more dollar bills or even $2 bills in Canada anymore. So you have a loonie, so that's the one, and you have a toonie, which is a derivative of the loonie, which is a $2 coin.
Nice.
So if you go to Canada, those are the words you're going to hear describing some of your money.
But it's important to point out that common loons are migratory. So they have this breeding range in Canada, dropping down into northern Michigan and Minnesota, and other parts of the Northeast. And they're also on lakes in, I think, Washington and Idaho, probably. I don't know, but they migrate and spend the winter largely along the Atlantic and Pacific coasts of North America, southern North America.
Yeah. And so it was special that we saw one, like where we were.
Yeah, I mean, it would depend on the time of year. I mean, they come through. Yeah. They come through in Lake Michigan. I mean, one of the things I think is fascinating about them is they're really well studied. People have spent a lot of time studying loons on these various lakes, like you were describing, and at the same time, they're really kind of aggressive with one another, such that I find them one of the more solitary species that I think of, in the sense that you're not going to see a whole bunch of loons like you would, say, double-crested cormorants or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, we just saw John, one single. Oh, go ahead, Amanda.
We did see one single. Yeah, and I wanted to pipe in. So one of the things I wanted to mention, piggybacking on what you were saying, John, was something I learned about. This was from the American Birding Association. They said after common loons fledge, they migrate south to coastal marine areas where they overwinter for several years, using their salt glands to handle eating ocean fish. And then they return to the breeding grounds at about 3 to 5 years of age. They begin searching for breeding territory. And one of the ways they achieve this is through hostile takeover, which means they injure or outright kill existing territory owners. Territorial battles between competing loons can be extremely violent and are rarely observed, but over the course of their long lives, some live to be 30. They can accumulate quite a few battle scars. And the American Birding Association said both males and females on average have 7 bill punctures in their sternums from being stabbed during past territorial scraps. So I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah. So I thought they are I see what you're saying, John.
Yes. Well, and they're really stocky birds. So and heavy for they're fairly good sized. They're about the size of a cormorant, but they probably weigh quite a bit more than a cormorant, I would think. And so the stuff about the territoriality in them is really fascinating. I mean, they say that they don't even really have pair bonds because there's just sort of this constant annual fight for the territory where, if you're getting a little older, somebody's going to show up and kick you off. And I guess it happens in both sexes.
Wow.
Jeez.
So the reason you don't find them so much in most of the U.S. is that it requires very clear lakes, right? And those are more characteristic of northern environments. And so one of the ways they can suffer is through, if there's bad weather and it stirs up the lake a lot, there can be too much turbidity and it interferes with them swimming, and they get what's called emaciation syndrome, apparently, where they'll die because they need the clear water to actually feed. So they dive underwater for their food, although I suppose they probably pick things off the surface too. But diving is the biggest thing. They have to see. They're looking for their prey. You have to be able to see it. And I guess the turbid waters are really bad for them.
But their whole body engineering, I think, is fascinating. So this is a family that has 5 species in it, and they all look alike. They have these dagger bills, these round heads, and then these long sort of fusiform bodies. And the feet are like basically almost come straight out the back of the bird. Huh. So in that sense, they're really designed to move through the water. And yet at the same time, they're doing these long migrations, and they can fly super fast. So they've got these long, their wings are really, I guess, sort of duck-like, but fairly long. And I mean, they can fly at like 70 miles an hour.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
For people who don't have a dictionary, fusiform means that it's tapered at both ends. I realize that we use a lot of words that are...
We do.
I got that was highlighted to me when I was talking to this person who's helping us with our retirement planning, and I spent the whole time Googling words as he's talking to me because I'm not sure. Even though we have these things as some of our financial options, I'm like, what the heck is that again?
Yes.
Anyway, so I'm trying to get away from using so much language that that people don't necessarily understand. I think fusiform is one of those words that bird people know because it's described. A lot of birds are described that way, but I'm not sure how common that word is in the English language generally, just colloquially. Did you guys know what that meant?
I did not. No,
I did
but
it.
Yeah.
now I do.
So.
Yeah.
But I wanted to, Shannon, I want to talk a little bit about language, and I know you love talking about language.
I do.
So we all know the expression "crazy as a loon," and I found something interesting, and this is attributed to Blair Birding, a birding group. So they said undoubtedly the phrase derives from the loon's unmistakable wild call, which could be compared to a madman's ravings, and then we'll hear that call soon. And then some others suggest that the bird got its name from lunatic, but the origin of the term lunatic is from the Latin luna, which is moon, and the notion that people acted crazy under the influence of the full moon. But this is saying actually the loon got its name from lom, a Swedish word for someone who is clumsy. So you think of the word lummox. So
So that's interesting because as graceful as, and they're absolutely graceful in the water. If you ever come up on one in a canoe, for instance, they can just dive immediately and show up 100 meters away, it seems like sometimes. So they're just incredible. On land, they're actually pretty darn clumsy. And it's just because their feet are so far back in their body. So,
they can barely walk,
they have really
right?
strong, they have strong feet and separated toes that help them, propel themselves through the water. So I loved looking up. This was one of the more fun ones to look up where the derivation of these names came from, both the common and the scientific names. And it harkens back to changes in the tree of life too, because so Gavia immer is the scientific name. Gavia is a genus name. Immer is a species name. We have 415 in our collections. I was surprised we had that many actually. Oh, wow. But so the word Gavia in Latin it refers to seabird, and the precise bird isn't known. But there are other ideas about that too, that it's a Proto-Indian word for shouter, which I found funny. And Gavia was not originally used for loons. So early naturalists had them under Columbus. But guess what this included, John? Guess what it was included in Columbus?
Well, I'm going to guess it included grebes.
It did.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So in 1956, the International Commission on Zoological Nomenclature, we have all these strange organizations that govern the rules associated with taxonomy, how you name things and what priority means and how Latin and Greek words have to end, all of that. And so then they invalidated Columbus and created Gavia for loons. And the immer part is Icelandic, and it's himrimi and means surf roarer, which I loved too. I like the idea of a surf roarer.
Surf roarer?
Yeah.
So I wonder if
it's because it's calling on the...
Oh, that's
cool.
It's roaring.
You think so?
Surf.
That's cool.
I don't
like
think
that.
I don't know.
And Europeans call them divers for obvious reasons.
Oh, yeah.
So
That's
if you...
I think that's more I think that's the British in particular.
Okay.
They just call them divers?
And common loon was called Great Northern Diver, which I always used to think was a pretty cool name as a kid.
That's
when you
so
talked about
so I wonder why we call
how
them
they were
loons
originally thought
in
to be
America.
in the family of grebes, I think you said. Like when we watched them swimming, it reminded me a lot of the way grebes swim underwater, right? Like the way that their legs are placed kind of almost like on the back of their body. Like we watched a lot of videos of them swimming underwater, and it like totally reminded us of our grebe episode that we did.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting though to see them. Oh, go ahead, Shannon.
There are ducks that have that too. Their legs pretty far back on the water. So then they look ridiculous when they get out of the water too. They look like they're going to fall over. They're very, very awkward looking on land. So that's pretty characteristic of things that have to propel themselves when they dive. So these aren't just like surface skimming or anything like that. They're actually for real, using their eyes underwater, diving and going after food that way, which is why they need these what's called an oligotrophic lake, which is one that has very low nutrients, and so it's very clear. Um, Lakes are characterized by kind of the nutrient levels, and they need oligotrophic waters. So that's the very clear part where if it gets stormy and the lake gets really stirred up, they can't see underwater and they they starve to death potentially. They have all these other really cool adaptations to be able to fly basically underwater like that. So they can expel the air from their air sacs really completely so that they get denser so that they can sink better in the water.
Whoa.
Which is also pretty cool too. And you think about that. I don't know about you guys, but when our son was little, he had no body fat. And so he could not tread water because he sank like a stone if you put him in the water. He hated being in the water when he was little, and he would just grab onto you. And it took me a while to figure out, like, well, just dog paddle. Come on, man. Yeah. But he couldn't do it because he just sunk. And when you think about that from you have to have special things to be able to get underwater. I would float like crazy on the water.
Yeah.
I could not relate to his sinking ability in the water. So yeah, you got to squish out all the air if you want to get down. But you have to be able to take deep breaths if you want to hold your breath long enough to be underwater for a while. So they do have substantial amounts of lung volume and air sac volume. The birds have really weird respiratory systems in that way, and they can have air sacs like into their bones and all kinds of weird things like that.
Oh, wow.
But if you want to sink, and that can be really advantageous if you're flying. But it's not so advantageous if you want to go to the middle of a lake and look for food. Although I don't think these things usually feed in the deepest parts of the lake, do they, John? I think aren't they usually in shallower waters?
They'll dive pretty deep. And what I was going to say is that I was going to ask you to talk a little bit about the phylogenetics of it, because for a long time they were placed next to the grebes, for the very reasons you guys were talking about. The grebes, most of them have, or not most, but some of them have pointed bills like a loon, and they have different feet in terms of how the webbing is constructed. But at the same time, they're in the same habitats in some areas, and so people thought they were related. And it turns out when you look at it,
they were usually put sequentially to each other, usually with loons first and then grebes. If you go back and look at field guides, until very, very recently, and it kind of made sense, but there were no unifying characters that really united them other than this kind of feeling about what they did. And so they were sequential to each other in most field guides. And when DNA work started coming along, it was very clear from even, there's a lot of the tree of life for birds that's uncertain. And because of the shape of the tree of life at its base for birds, it's comprised of a lot of little tiny intervals between bursts of speciation. And it makes it really hard because everything looks distinct, but things don't look like something else. So I've used this analogy before, but a parrot looks like a parrot looks like a parrot. You wouldn't have any trouble binning them together. If I laid out parrots, you would put them all together. But if I laid out all the birds of the world and asked you to tell me what parrots were related to, you would be confused, like 200 years of ornithologists were. Nobody knew really with any certainty until DNA work came along. So now DNA has told us very clearly that parrots and songbirds are each other's closest relatives. And they've also told us that loons and grebes are not closely related at all, and that grebes look like grebes are related to flamingos, of which they look nothing like.
Oh, wow.
So that would not be, I mean, there are some intricate details of skeletons that can help you with that diagnosis, but only after you know what the DNA told you kind of what the tree was. And then you can go back and look and say, okay, well, these characters were probably things that united grebes with flamingos. But it wouldn't be there's nothing obvious about that set of relationships. It just came out extremely strongly with DNA based analyses. So a lot of people thought that was kind of crazy, but a lot of higher level avian relationships is kind of crazy because there's all kinds of things we thought we knew that we don't. And there's still, even after a lot of entire genomes being sequenced, there's still some birds like the hoatzin, like tropic birds, for which their placement in the tree is still extremely uncertain. But so I think it's really delightful that grebes and loons, and now we're seeing that reflected in taxonomy. So if you look at birds of the world now, you won't see grebes by loons.
Right.
What are grebes? What are loons closest to then?
Yeah.
Go ahead, John.
Well, the loons are in this clade of waterbirds, and what else is in there? Are the penguins in there?
Yeah, there's some uncertainty about what is in that group too. I'd have to go back and look at some of these phylogenies. You'd think I'd know this off the top of my head by now.
Oh no!
But
so did if grebes and loons are different families, did they both
different orders of
different
birds.
orders? Okay, so did they both independently evolve to swim that way? So kind of like John showed us that clip. We've been talking about convergence of meadowlarks and I forget what the other bird was in Africa, John.
Yellow-throated longclaw.
Yeah, and how those both adapted or evolved to look that way, even though they're different families, different parts of the world. So grebes and loons, if they're not from the same order, they both have evolved to have this body type that allows them to swim and hunt and everything. That's cool.
Yeah, so you can get to the same endpoint, which is a body that's seemingly adapted to dive in the water. You can get that because you're each other's closest relatives, so you inherit it from a common ancestor. Or you can get it convergently, which means that's a really good way of doing that thing, diving underwater in this case. And so it gets evolved multiple times because it's the most efficient or effective way to dive underwater if you're a bird. I mean, obviously you can't, they're not kind of making submarines or anything like that. So you got to work with what you have. You're still a bird. So if I'm a bird and I'm going to exploit resources under the water, what do I need? Well, I need eyes that can see super well underwater. I need to be able to sink at the same time as I spend a lot of my life floating. So how the heck am I going to accomplish that? I need to be able to dive. I'm not so needing to walk around on the land. So how about if I shift my legs to the back of my body so that I can be propelled into the water with greater efficiency, because it's a lot of energy to go under the water like that and hunt for food. So I'm going to find really clear lakes, so my eyes don't have to evolve that well to see under the water. And so when you see these repeated things happening, whether that's this fusiform body or this tapered body or legs on the back of your body, which has happened in a lot of groups that spend a lot of time diving in water, that's likely an adaptation for whatever it is that those things are doing. And in this case, it's got to be good to put your legs on the back of your body if you want to propel yourself in the water. And a lot of them also have adaptations in their eyes. They've changed. Some aspects of their corneas or their visual systems to be able to see underwater. Kingfishers certainly have.
Yeah, I was wondering whether it seems sort of counterintuitive to me, and I wonder if anybody's looked at it, that on the wintering grounds where they're in marine environments, that I guess some of them are offshore. So I wonder if they're selecting clearer water in these marine environments that they're spending time in too.
I mean, that would be my guess, unless they're having to expend a lot less energy because it's warmer. I don't know.
Yeah. We should also talk about the plumage of them, because I think another aspect to them is they are a really cool looking bird in the sense that they have this, the adults in breeding season have this checkerboard pattern on their back and this blackish head with this really funky necklace that has black and white in it. And so they're super distinctive in the breeding season. But then when they're done breeding, they go through a molt and they turn into these basically gray and white birds to spend the winter.
Okay.
And so
I've never seen that before.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen them in their non-breeding. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to look that up
you
now.
should look up pictures of them. I mean, they're also really important as environmental indicators. They're fairly long-lived, so you have to take kind of a long perspective. They give you a long perspective on the health of water. So whether it's things like mercury contamination or some other things that might get into these lakes, they get bioaccumulated in birds like this. So it's getting into the plants that the fish eat, and then the fish that the birds eat. And so they're bioaccumulating this, these environmental toxins. So they can be strong indicators of the health of any lake system, which is how they're used. So the, dead loons will be sampled in that way to look at how they might have died, what is going on. Almost certainly now they're going to be used for looking for microplastics and some of these other permanent chemicals, these PFAS chemicals. So yeah, there's no end to humans' ability to do bad things.
Up. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think one of the good things is that their populations are actually holding pretty steady, which is not what everything is doing these days. And at the same time, Amanda, what you brought up about what they do in the breeding season in terms of beating the tar out of each other to get breeding sites, it was suggested in one of the things I was looking at that actually reduces the lifespan. And so you start realizing that maybe I don't know whether it affects their ability to bioaccumulate, but no, they're a really well studied bird, and yet I'm fascinated by some of these questions that might come up from additional sampling on them.
Interesting.
I had a thought after the one that we saw in southern Michigan was just like, could they be like underreported in some of these lakes where it's just like people aren't, birding? Like the lake that we go to, there's not a lot of public access. It's all kind of private houses along this lake. And it was out in the middle of the lake. And it's like, unless, Amanda and I could have been the only people out there looking for birds, there's not a ton of eBird data. And I feel like, a lot of Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, there's a lot of lakes that are kind of like that, where there isn't like access for birders unless if you know somebody there who has a dock or a boat or something. I don't know. It was just a thought that I had once we saw this. I was like, could this bird have been coming here every year? And now that we're looking for him, we're seeing him. And I wonder how many other people had seen him in the past, if any.
I think it could be. I mean, I think one of the things is you go up to places like Minnesota, for instance, and there are just a lot of lakes. And one of the things that it seems like a number of people have done for theses and dissertations is really concentrate on an area, and they can usually, you can find them if you're looking for them. Okay. Because they're going to be out in the middle of the lake. I could easily see they get underreported. One of the things I was looking at is because, I said earlier that it seems to me like my experience with them is I see one at a time. I've seen groups during migration in a few places flying over, and flying by. Like, for instance, here in Evanston, every once in a while, you get a big movement. I actually had one day where there were 4 of them, not really together, but at least I could see them at one time right over the house on a really nasty fall day where they were sort of coming off the lake. But I started looking at the wintering range, and an awful lot of the eBird lists for instance, in the Gulf of California, where they almost certainly winter in some numbers, were like single individuals. And so you start wondering where are the quote unquote populations of these birds in the winter if what most people are seeing is a single individual someplace.
Yeah.
Wow. I certainly don't like company.
No.
Like outside of breeding, like that's the only time.
They defend pretty substantial, even series of lakes. I mean, how the heck they must be super vigilant birds, because if you look at, I look at some of the lakes in British Columbia where they're pretty common, and some of these lakes are big. So are you telling me that this bird can sense or see or hear, find some other loon that is, a kilometer away in some of these lakes? And they defend the whole thing by themselves. So I guess they do. I guess they're good at patrolling.
That's awesome.
I don't know, but they are really, really pretty good at being by themselves on a lake, which, hence their mystique, right? So, John, what do you think happens? So they have red eyes. Their eyes have these special red pigment called a pterin in it, and apparently that red helps them see underwater. It sharpens acuity underwater like that. So it makes sense like that. But then they change their eye color outside of the breeding season. So they don't need to see as well. I mean, do they not eat as much?
No, but I come back to this turbidity in the marine environments frequently. I wonder if the water's a little less clear in most of the areas that they're spending the winter.
So they don't care their eyes don't help them as much? The red in their eyes don't help them as much?
I'm obviously no expert on.
I don't know
what the mechanics are of the one eye color versus the other, but that's an interesting hypothesis from my perspective.
I mean, their eyes, the red eyes, are extremely distinctive, even from very long distances using your binoculars. You don't even need a spotting scope to tell that their eyes are really red in the breeding season. There's not much sexual size dimorphism in them. I'm not sure there's any males and females. I don't think there's strong sexual differences.
I'll tell you one thing I was thinking is that I would be scared to death to work on it. Because if you were capturing these things, I mean, I'm sure they just do nothing but strike at you with that bill, which is super sharp.
I mean, that's one of the ways in which might know what they do is to put trackers on them. So how many lakes are how big their home ranges really are, which I also think is a really important thing to understand how you can interpret the water quality guidance that they give is by tracking them. You need to know where they go and how long they spend in any one time. So has anybody done feather stuff on them, John? Do you know?
Yeah, I think there was some isotope. There have been some isotope analyses. I think that the challenge with a lot of isotope analyses is, there's a limited number of isotopes you can look at. And so I'm not sure how isotopes would tell you too much about water quality per se. Well, I guess they would.
It might tell you where it goes, right? It would tell you where they were when they made their feathers.
Yeah, for sure. You could look at latitude, but I mean that's an interesting question. So they go all the way up to Alaska across Canada, and then they're pulling out of that entire distribution and going down to the coast, and it sounds like there's some site fidelity, but also, I mean, again, it seemed to me like there was a surprising amount of mortality, and so there was a lot of changeover in a given period of time.
Did you guys watch pictures or videos of them feeding? To see them like manipulate a fish so that it goes down head first?
No,
I don't think
think
we
Yeah.
did watch that. Yeah.
Yeah, just see
And
if I can
the
find a video of
the other
that.
thing I was going to bring up is what they do when the chicks hatch.
What's
Oh.
that?
Oh,
So the young
cute.
ride on the back of the adults.
Oh,
Yeah,
we
I
did
think we
see
saw
super
some
that.
pictures
sweet.
of
That's
that.
the cutest thing.
Which is
Yeah.
just awesome.
So cute.
Yeah.
I wanted to go back and comment on something Shannon was saying about how one bird defends this massive lake and possibly more than one lake. And something I read about, and this is going back to their different calls, a researcher, his name was Walter Piper of Chapman University. He was talking about the tremolo call, and specifically a flight tremolo. So I'm going to play, this is one of 4 calls that the loon makes, one of 4 vocalizations. So this is called the tremolo, and it's an aggressive response given when disturbed by a boater or a predator, and it also announces a bird's presence at a lake. So here we go with the tremolo.
And I love how that basically echoes off the water, and a lot of times you hear them in the evening as it's getting dark, and oh my gosh, it's such a great sound.
Yeah, I was just saying the something I was reading was from this Walter Piper. He was saying that tremolo call, sometimes like a young bird, he called it like an intruder, will be flying over a lake, and he'll give that call. Let's see, I want to make sure I'm saying this right, and it's kind of like, who's there, and can you tell me more about yourself? So a young bird, an intruder, someone who doesn't have its own territory yet, will give that call over a lake, and then he's
like,
hoping,
leave me alone. I'm not really landing. Don't come after me. I'm safe.
See, that's exactly must be why they're doing it, because if they land, it's going to take them forever to get off. Like I've been realizing I've never seen a loon actually take off from the water.
Oh wow!
Because they need a huge runway, right?
They do that. Have big lakes.
That's crazy.
So
because there's stories of them landing in like ponds that are too small, and then they don't have enough runway to get out, and they can't take off. Right? Oh. It's like they need a certain amount of space, and if they don't have it, they literally can't get back up in the air. I think.
Yeah. I vividly remember going to see I think it was was it a red-throated loon, one of the other species, that showed up on a tiny little ranch pond down on the Nogales border in Arizona when I was in high school. And me and a friend of mine decided we would drive down there at night, and we actually saw it with a spotlight.
Oh, wow.
But that pond was, I have no idea how that bird necessarily was able to get out. I mean, they can probably get loft shorter in some situations, but it's definitely a problem. And so you probably want to be pretty careful where you land, and then if it's going to be immediately a battle with somebody being there, I love the idea that they're actually using that call to kind of suss out what the situation is on the given pond that they're going over.
Yeah. To that point, John, I read that you can, in response, if there's a male on the lake, he'll give a unique yodel, which is another one of the calls, and it's a yodel is just as distinctive as any human voice, just like how we recognize each other's voices, and it can signal to the younger bird how old the male is, how large the male is, and how aggressive he's likely to be if you land in his territory.
Right.
So I'm going to play the yodel real quick.
Yeah, do that, because...
And then, John, you tell us how old, aggressive, and heavy the bird is.
I'm going to
tell
tell
us
you
if you know this one.
He's a 56-year-old, 235-pound.
All right. Here's somebody's yodel.
And there's the call that I mean, both calls are pretty amazing, but that's the one I think that really gets people's attention. And
yeah,
I guess the one question I would have is how nailed down. Well, I'm guessing that the individual nature has probably been studied of those calls by recording a bunch of the same bird on a lake over and over again. I don't know about the information content. Not that it's not conveyed, but if there's how much detail there is in some of that is an interesting question.
Yeah, if you have to be a loon to understand. I'm going to play the last two calls. This is the whale, and this is probably the most frequently heard call. And it makes this call when it becomes separated from a chick or if its mate fails to return. And it also indicates a willingness to interact. So this is the whale.
So cool.
That's beautiful. Yeah, that's the one I think of when I think of like, oh, loon, is that whale.
And that's the one that's used in every movie all over the globe.
Shannon, do you want to speak to that? Yes.
Well, it's often used to evoke mood, right? And you can see that in the movies. And they don't seem to care where in the world this movie is supposed to take place because you'll hear a loon in it. And it's not because they're actually filming on a lake in Canada. It's because they're piping that sound into whatever mood they're trying to create, kind of a haunting mood or a stressful or a tense mood or whatever. But so you can use it mood-wise. But for me, some of the interesting memories I have of loons in movies is when the sound is actually like a character in the movie. And the biggest one for me is on Golden Pond.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you saw that movie, but the relationship between, the daughter, the father and the daughter, with the mother kind of on the side of that relationship, the loon on the lake there is a character in the movie. It's not just a haunting sound. It actually is actually telling you things about what's going on between this father and daughter. So for me, that's the most memorable use of loons. Mostly it annoys me like Kookaburra does. Can't you find something local that invokes the same thing? Do you have to put a loon everywhere? But I mean, it's in so many movies. On Golden Pond, Finding Dory. Oh, I won't even try to pronounce that one. The Loon's Necklace. Well, that one makes sense. There's a movie called Loon. It's a horror movie in which a couple's peaceful retreat to a remote cabin is disrupted by a terrifying neighbor. So you can absolutely see them use that.
We have to look hilarious.
That one up. That sounds like a
good
movie.
It's in Out of Africa, for example. The hell, in Platoon, for example.
Yes, in Vietnam.
It's all over the X-Files. It's so
it's
Godzilla
perfect.
Apparently
it's perfect for the X-Files.
It is perfect for the talk about mood. Yeah.
Conan the Barbarian.
I saw something. We were watching just something on YouTube, and they were analyzing the call and talking about like different bird calls, like the notes are so specific, and they compared the loon call to like bending notes, the way like a blues guitarist would like play a note and then like bend it and like wail it, which they said was kind of unique to the loon's call, and that's one of the reasons it like evokes emotion. And I thought that was a really cool analysis. I was like, oh, I get that after hearing that. It does kind of like bend a note.
Yeah, that's neat.
I'm trying to think. I mean, hawks obviously have screams that are manipulated a tiny bit, but not in the same way as what loons are doing.
Yeah, red-tailed hawks and owls are often, but they're often in the places they're actually
used in movies.
Sound? Yeah, they're often in the places with the movies are being shot. Unlike, a loon in the movie Platoon seems okay. But it belongs in On Golden Pond. It belongs.
Yeah.
And if you watch that movie and you think about loons before you watch it, you'll probably relate to the movie, I think, really differently. When I first watched that movie, I didn't know anything about birds, so I was just mesmerized by the relationship between the daughter and the father. But now when I see that movie, it means something completely different because I see the loon completely differently than I did then.
It definitely means, to me, northern lakes and northern forest. And in some ways, the closest thing it seems like is like wolves howling.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's just,
but not quite as terrifying.
No.
It's haunting.
Unless you're another loon.
As long as you're not trying to catch him.
Yeah.
So they don't have taste buds, which is hilarious to me.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And they swallow fish whole, and they actually don't spit things out. They have a gizzard, and they have little rocks in their gizzard that grind up all that stuff. Because normally you would spit out fish bones because they can, you can die from getting cuts in your digestive system from the bones. So they use these stones to grind up everything, and then it's abrasive enough they have to go and get more stones. So it's not like you don't just get one set of stones at the beginning of your life and keep them. So you have to go out and get some more stones of varying sizes to kind of beat the heck out of your fish bones before you can swallow things.
Wait, do they grow stones or they go and eat some and keep them there?
No, they go get them.
They go get them.
They
okay.
Get them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whoa.
But I am a little worried, like how your stones are too small or too beaten up is when the fish bone goes into your esophagus.
Oh,
yeah. It hurts. It hurts. They might not be able to taste fish in that way, but they can certainly tell that something's scratching.
Oh my gosh. So Shannon, do other birds not have taste buds?
Yeah.
So, is that common?
There's so much we don't know about taste because we only know about taste from humans, basically.
Okay.
So hummingbirds have co-adopted other taste receptors to actually taste sweet. So they don't do it in the same way that humans taste sweet. So there's been a lot of mutations in kingfishers, for example. Like, do they taste this umami flavor, the thing that you think fishes would give them? So there's a lot. I need to do more research on that. As I'm putting together this ornithology class, that's one of the things I have on the list to talk about in more detail, having to do with sensory systems. But I think taste is a really understudied and interesting thing to know more about for birds.
It's a good example of something that now that you can get down to the molecular level and the genomic level with some of these questions, you can start looking at genes that have a function associated with some of this. Whereas, it's not like you're going to ask a loon whether they could taste something. You're not going to, and so, yeah, 10 years ago, those experiments at some level, you could look at, they've done classic things with monarch butterflies and blue jays. So blue jays will eat monarch butterflies, which are poisonous to them, and spit them out. And then they've done other studies showing that the viceroys that mimic monarchs then won't get eaten by the blue jays once they've had experience eating a monarch.
Oh, wow.
Oh, cool.
And so there's some
That's
neat things like
crazy.
that. But now with molecular techniques, you can get to a whole nother level of investigation on that.
Yeah. So, for example, in hummingbirds, you can see that the sweet taste receptor in humans, that gene, you can see that there's something called a stop codon in it. So, what that means is a protein doesn't go to completion and make the whole thing. So, either it gets some little piece of something that has an unknown function, or it is completely gone. And some of these genes, it's fatal. Most mutations like that are fatal if they happen. But this one, so that, but the function can be taken up by other genes, kind of slightly altering their function or working together to create something. And that I find that really fascinating. Those kinds of ideas. Yeah, you can't ask birds what they taste and what they see,
Right.
or what they hear. Actually,
Yeah.
So I wonder if it's because they're catching live prey all the time. So that's what they live on. Is they're not going to eat dead fish on a shore.
Dead.
I don't think.
Yeah.
Maybe that's one of the reasons they don't really need taste buds
Like,
for the.
They're not going to eat something that'll make them sick, you mean?
Yeah, for the most part.
Yeah.
it's fish or nothing at all.
Yeah. Wow.
Although I'd be guessing that every once in a while you could run across a fish that has some toxins associated with it that you might not want to eat. Then what?
Yeah. Yeah, and then they're vulnerable. Yeah. Interesting.
I mean, so their feathers, John's right, their feathers are super cool, because as part of their diving adaptations, they get rid of all the air from their feathers. So they kind of, instead of being a little bit fluffy, and if you look at them, they're not really all that fluffy to begin with. They're not, like some ducks that are really fluffy. They're not like that. They're very stiff, sleek, tightly put together. But they get rid of all the air when they're going to dive. So they get rid of the air in their air sacs and in their lungs. They get rid of the air in their feathers, all of these things to help them. Then you need to have some air in your feathers to be buoyant on the water. But you got to get rid of it when you're diving. And they sit low on the water too when they're on the water. They're not like, some little ducks are so cute and they are kind of bouncing around up and down on the water. But loons don't do that.
No, and I'm just thinking that must just add to the difficulty they have actually getting up in the air. It's like,
when they try to fly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to have strong bones to be able to fly underwater like that, right? There's a lot of pressure that's put on leg bones from the muscles. So your bones are pretty strong, or your bones have to be, denser than maybe some other bones. Albatrosses don't do that, for example. So
I was going to take it another direction and say, like, cormorants and things will get up on out of the water and actually open their wings and dry them for a while sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
But that's because of the oils. They have different things on their feathers. They don't have the same oils on their feathers, so they don't repel the water as well as other birds. They have to dry in a different way.
But again, so a loon, if it's trying to, let's say you were chasing it, it would actually dive rather than fly off.
Okay.
In almost every single case, because that's what they're good at.
Okay.
So how does it get rid of the... Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Shannon.
No, go ahead. No, I'm just stuck on my adaptations, because they have adaptations the way their skull and the back of their neck and the back of their skull come together, so that that they can be rigid kind of in the water, which I found really interesting. So that the foramen magnum, the hole in your skull that your spine goes through, is directed perpendicular, so it can reduce drag. It can hold its neck in a way to reduce drag when it's in the water. So
cool.
I mean, they're full of adaptations under the feathers. I mean, their feathers have adaptations too, but you got to look beneath the surface.
I was going to ask if the process of getting rid of air in the feathers before they dive, is that just automatic and constantly happening?
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah. And if there's some, I mean, there are other, it's another one of those convergences. So within the ducks, you've got mallards, which are dabbling ducks, which are going to want to be buoyant. And they basically, as adults at least, just are sticking their heads down in, but not their whole body. Whereas if you look at a merganser, they have a different bill shape than loons, but they're pursuit divers, where they're getting underneath the water and pursuing fish that way. They actually have red eyes too.
That's what I was gonna say,
that
and
helps
wood
them
ducks
see.
too,
It
right?
helps
Yeah.
them. I don't know about wood ducks because I don't know what the red does in wood ducks. Or I should know this because I did review a paper on this, and there's a really, really cool, fairly recent paper on bird eyes that would have told me that. I just don't remember.
Well, there must be some trade-offs with respect to, I mean,
pigments.
lots of things have red eyes, but I could see there being patterns among groups that have divers and surface feeders related to that. Although
Okay.
wood ducks are they're dabblers in the sense that they don't dive.
They're not diving. Okay.
Did you guys go look at videos of them in their aggressive displays? I mean, if you get past the sounds you're not supposed to, the sounds that should tell you go away, I'm not,
Right.
but if you go ahead and land, they have this aggressive upright thing that's so interesting looking. If you go look at videos of it, they kind of rise up out of the water and face each other.
Oh,
It's
cool.
really cool.
So one of the things I found interesting about that is that grebes have this display among some of the species with long bills, like Clark's and western grebes, where the pair will get up and rise out of the water like that and then scoot along the water for 30, 40 minutes. And when the loon posture looks like a grebe posture to me when they rise up like that.
But it's aggressive for the
Yeah,
loons,
it's
and for the grebes,
exactly.
it's like a mating
it's
thing.
not a courtship thing at all. They're not doing
No.
That's crazy.
It's not clear to me that loons, like, courtship is very extended in these guys. Like,
Except I will tell you, unlike many other birds that I have burst people's bubbles with, that they actually, there's no DNA evidence, at least yet, of extra pair fertilizations. So if you're really fond of loons, you can, and moralizing on top of the loon behavior, there doesn't seem to be a lot of cheating in that sense in loons. So
no, and I do wonder, I don't know. I mean, I was thinking maybe that's a consequence of essentially breeding in places where the breeding season is pretty circumscribed, and so you're not, but it's also, again, I mean, they're clearly aggressive birds towards each other, and I think there's some neat questions there.
I think we are getting close on time for loons. Is there anything else loons we want to talk about, or otherwise, nope. Amanda, do you want to close it out?
Yeah, I was just say, I feel we were super lucky in this part of the country to see a loon, and yeah, I hope everyone gets to see one at some point.
And hear them. I mean, I think it's definitely worth a summer trip up to Minnesota or some, place with northern lakes like that. They're incredible.
Go to Duluth, Minnesota. Duluth is a really nice place.
Oh, I've always heard that.
We have good friends who live in Duluth, and maybe that'll motivate us to make a visit.
Yeah.
It's very pretty.
But the big time of year is actually winter.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't want to go in the winter. I didn't tell
people. But if you want to see great grial and things like that.
Oh, cool. Yeah. John, when you were talking about hearing a loon, I think on one of the videos we were watching on loons, someone commented like, actually, I think it was a video about what Shannon was talking about how the loon call is used in movies in ridiculous ways. And someone commented on that video on YouTube, even though it's meant to evoke like a feeling of, sometimes something scary or lonely, or just you're really out alone in the wilderness. This person said, for me, I grew up hearing the loon, so it's a very nostalgic, soothing sound. And it's so funny because that's what RJ and I feel about mourning doves, which is Shannon's least favorite sound. Like, it's like such a nostalgic, sweet sound to me. But yeah, it's all in the eye of the beholder.
It's just whining. It whines all day, every day. Whine,
it's
whine.
morning.
I don't hear you saying that about loons, and they can sound like they're just...
To each his own. Everybody can have their own
Loons
feeling. It evokes an emotion, not necessarily the same emotion.
Loons may be expressing loneliness, but that's not whining.
I see that as an early bracket matchup.
Oh, the loon against the mourning dove. All right.
No, because you guys will somehow make it so that the stinking mourning dove wins, and I'll be.
We'll just have to wait and see.
Thing.
Yeah, just wait and see, Shannon.
All right, I'm
gonna pay people to vote otherwise.
Oh no! Don't say that.
The commissioner will show up.
Yeah.
Pay people. Just remember, we're biologists, so it's not very much money.
It's not going to be a lot of
us from vote.
Awesome.
Thank you to everyone for listening. We continue to get great feedback from you all, so thank you for being a part of this with us. You all are the reason why we do this, so thank you for listening and following along. See you all next week. We love you all. Thanks.